The bottle tilts, and the room holds its breath. Red wine pours down the front of Vivian Cole's white gown in one long, slow stream, deliberate, unhurried, like a decision that has already been made. It soaks through the silk instantly. It spreads across her stomach. 8 months of pregnancy, 8 months of carrying a life, and the wine runs over all of it and drips onto the marble floor of the most expensive ballroom in the city. Vivian does not scream. She does not grab the woman's wrist. She does not step back. She stands in the center of 300 dinner guests, senators, investors, surgeons, the kind of people whose names appear on buildings, and she absorbs every drop without making a sound. That is the first thing that silences the room. They expected crying. They expected a scene. The woman holding the bottle Jade in her gold sequined gown with her perfect posture and her borrowed confidence had clearly expected it too. Her smile wavers when Vivian doesn't break, just for a second, just enough for the people at the nearest table to notice. Jade lifts her chin and says, loud enough for the front row to hear, "White was a bold choice, for a woman whose husband hasn't touched her in 7 months." 300 people stop breathing. Vivian's eyes move slowly with complete control to her husband Elliot, standing 12 feet away at the edge of the dance floor. He is holding a whiskey glass. His face has gone the color of old paper. He takes one step forward, then stops. Hi viewers, before this goes any further, I need to ask you something. If you were sitting at one of those tables tonight, watching a woman who is 8 months pregnant get wine poured on her dress by her husband's mistress, while her husband stood 12 feet away and did nothing, what would you have done? Leave your answer in the comments right now and subscribe, because what happens in the next 60 seconds changed every life in that room. The main doors open. Not the side doors, not the staff entrance. The main doors, both of them at the same time, like the building exhaled. 2 men in black walk through, broad, calm, unhurried. They do not look at anyone except Vivian. They cross the ballroom floor in complete silence and they stop, one on her left, one on her right, and they stand there like they were always supposed to be exactly here. Thomas, the one on her left, looks at Jade without expression. Jade looks back, and something happens to her face, something small but visible, something that moves through her eyes before she can stop it, because those men did not come with Elliot. She can tell by the way Elliot's hand tightens on his glass that he has never seen them before in his life. They came with Vivian. She planned this. Nobody at that gala knew Vivian had spent 3 weeks preparing for tonight. They knew her as Elliot Cole's wife, quiet, graceful, the woman who showed up to his events and smiled at the right people and never demanded attention for herself. They did not know that 6 weeks ago, on a Wednesday morning, she had found a message on Elliot's second phone. Not a suspicious message. A final one, the kind a man sends a woman when he has made her a promise he has no right to make. He had told Jade the marriage was already over. Vivian read that message standing in her kitchen in her robe, one hand on her stomach feeling her son move, and she stood there for a long time without sitting down. Then she called her attorney. Then she called Thomas. Then she made herself breakfast and she did not cry. She had cried enough. She was done with that part. She came to the gala tonight because Elliot had asked her to, said his biggest investor expected a united front, said it mattered for the business, said please. She had agreed because she needed him in that room. She needed Jade in that room. She needed 300 witnesses in that room. She had worn white on purpose. The legal documents in her clutch, 2 pages, folded once, had been signed by her attorney 4 days ago. They concerned the controlling shares of Cole Industries that Vivian's father had placed in her name before he died. Shares that Elliot had been quietly trying to transfer for 11 months. Shares that his biggest investor did not know were still entirely Vivian's to keep or pull. Vivian had carried those papers into this room like a quiet kind of fire. The white wrap she wore over her gown, her father's last gift to her, a cream silk shawl he had given her the week before he passed, had been knocked to the floor when Jade poured the wine. It lies on the marble now, 3 feet away, absorbing red. Thomas sees it. He does not pick it up yet, he waits. Jade has not moved. She is still holding the empty bottle, and the silence in the room has shifted from shock into something heavier. The kind of silence that means people are deciding what they think. Jade can feel it. She is smart enough to feel it. Her eyes go to Elliot, reading his face for the signal she always gets from him, the small nod, the steady look, the wordless reassurance that she is not alone in this. Elliot is staring at the floor. Jade's grip on the bottle tightens. Vivian turns to face her fully. She has wine on her dress and wine on her hands, and her white gown is ruined, and she looks at Jade with an expression that is not anger. It is something quieter and far more devastating. "It is pity." "He told you the marriage was over," Vivian says. Her voice carries not because she raises it, but because the room is that silent. "He told you I was difficult, cold, that we hadn't been close in years." She pauses. "He told me the same thing about you the night I found your message." Jade's face shifts. "He said you were unstable," Vivian says. "That you had misunderstood the situation, that he was handling it." The bottle in Jade's hand lowers by 2 inches. Not intentionally, her arm just loses some of its certainty. Vivian looks at her for one more beat, just long enough for the truth to land. Then she turns away, not dramatically, not for the crowd. She simply turns the way a woman turns when she is done with a conversation that no longer requires her energy. She looks at Thomas. Thomas looks back and gives one small nod. From across the room, a man Vivian has never spoken to tonight. A man named Harris Grant, silver-haired, sitting at the head table as Elliot's lead investor slowly sets down his fork. He has been watching all of this, every second of it. And something in his face is doing the math. Elliot reaches her before she reaches the edge of the dance floor. He steps in front of her, not gently, not the way a man steps toward the woman he loves, but sideways, blocking, and his voice comes out low and sharp and meant only for her. "What did you tell her? What did you say to make her do that?" Vivian looks at him. "I didn't tell her anything, Elliot," she says. "She came here on her own. You gave her enough to come here on her own." His jaw moves. "Those men, who are they?" "My father's security firm. He set up a retainer for me 3 years ago." She holds his gaze. "You knew that." He had forgotten. She can see it. The exact moment he remembers that her father, who never fully trusted him, had insisted on this specific provision before he died. Before he handed Vivian into this marriage with both eyes open and one quiet layer of protection underneath. "We need to talk," Elliot says. "We will," Vivian says. "Monday with attorneys." Something moves through his face. Not remorse, not yet. He is not there yet. It is the particular fear of a man who has just realized the ground he was standing on was never as solid as he thought. He reaches for her arm. Thomas steps forward, not fast, not aggressive, just one step that places him precisely between Elliot's hand and Vivian's arm. Elliot pulls back. Vivian steps around him. She walks toward Harris Grant's table and she does not look back. She can feel Elliot behind her, frozen, watching. She can feel 300 sets of eyes tracking every step she takes. She keeps her back straight. She keeps her steps even. The wine on her dress is cold now, drying at the edges, and she does not care about any of it. She has 2 pages in her clutch and one conversation left to have. Harris Grant stands up when she reaches his table. That gesture alone, a 70-year-old man who has never once stood for anyone in this room without being asked, makes the people around him go still. He looks at Vivian's dress. He looks at her face. He pulls out the chair beside him. "Sit," he says, not unkindly. Vivian sits. She opens her clutch and places the 2 folded pages on the table between them. Harris looks at them without touching them. "I have known your father since 1987, he says. "I know," Vivian says. "He trusted you." Harris nods once. "What is this?" "The controlling shares of Coal Industries, still in my name, signed over to me by my father 4 years ago, 18 months before Elliot and I married." She keeps her voice completely level. "Elliot has been filing transfer requests with our joint attorneys for 11 months. I have declined all of them. He does not know I know about the most recent one." Harris is quiet. "He told you the company was his to grow," Vivian says. "He brought you in as lead investor on that basis. Before you put another dollar in, you should know whose name is on the controlling interest." Harris unfolds the pages. He reads them slowly, completely. He is a man who built his fortune on reading things fully before responding, and he does exactly that now while Vivian sits beside him in a wine-soaked gown and waits. When he looks up, his expression has changed in a way that would make Elliot Cole's blood run cold. "Does he know you're showing me this?" Harris asks. "No," Vivian says. Harris refolds the pages. He slides them back across the table to her, not dismissively, with care. "Keep these safe," he says. "I'll call my attorneys in the morning." Vivian puts the pages back in her clutch. Across the room, Elliot is watching. He cannot hear a word. He can only see Harris Grant, the man whose investment runs his entire operation, sitting with his wife, nodding, and looking at him now with an expression that means Elliot's morning has just become the worst of his professional life. Mama Rose finds Vivian near the terrace doors. She is 71 years old, and she has been sitting at table 6 since the wine hit her daughter's dress, watching, because she has raised Vivian well enough to know that Vivian did not need her to run across a ballroom. What Vivian needed was for her mother to stay seated and trust her. But now the documents are put away, and Harris Grant is already on his phone, and Elliot is standing alone near the bar looking like a man watching his own house burn. Now Mama Rose crosses the room and takes her daughter's face in both hands. She looks at the dress. She looks at Vivian's eyes. "Baby," she says. That one word, the only word in the English language that can reach through every wall a grown woman builds, cracks something open in Vivian's chest. Her eyes fill. She does not let them spill. She breathes through it, jaw tight, the way she has been breathing through things all night. "I'm fine, Mama," she says. "I know you are," Mama Rose says. "I know." She takes off her own wrap, dark blue, soft, and puts it around Vivian's shoulders. She adjusts it carefully, the way she used to adjust Vivian's coat before school. Her hands are gentle and they are sure and they do not shake. Vivian looks down at her father's white shawl, still lying on the marble floor across the room where Jade knocked it. Thomas is already walking toward it. He picks it up from the floor. He folds it with both hands, slowly, the way something worth keeping deserves to be folded, and he carries it back across the ballroom and places it in Vivian's hands. Vivian presses it against her chest. Her son moves inside her, strong, deliberate like he knows. Jade is near the exit when Vivian sees her. She is not performing anymore. The gold sequins are the same, but the woman inside them looks smaller, standing alone near the coachroom door, clutch held in front of her with both hands, watching the room she thought she had just conquered rearrange itself entirely without her. Elliot has not gone to her. He has not looked at her since Harris Grant stood up for Vivian. And Jade, who gave up 2 years of her life believing she was chosen, believing she was the real story and Vivian was the obstacle, is standing here alone at this party understanding, for the first time, what she actually was. Vivian does not have to go to her. Thomas would guide her out another way. Mama Rose has her arm. Nobody would blame her for walking past. She goes to her anyway. Jade sees her coming and her chin goes up. A reflex, armor, the only thing left. But Vivian stops in front of her, and her voice is quiet, and she does not perform this for anyone. "He is not going to choose you," Vivian says. "He was never going to choose you, and I think some part of you already knew that, or you wouldn't have needed to do this tonight." Jade's jaw tightens, her eyes go bright. "What he told you about our marriage," Vivian says. "Some of it was probably true, we were not okay, but that was between us and it was ours to fix or end. He should have ended it before he started anything with you. That part is on him." She pauses. "But pouring wine on a pregnant woman in front of 300 people, that part is on you." Jade says nothing. Her eyes are wet now, and she is working hard not to let it show and failing at the edges. Vivian turns and walks away. She does not feel powerful. She feels tired and sad, and her back hurts, and her dress is ruined, and she wants to go home. But she feels clean in a way she has not felt in months, the specific cleanness of a woman who chose not to become what was done to her. The ride home is quiet. Thomas drives. Mama Rose sits in the back with Vivian, their shoulders touching, and nobody speaks for the first 10 minutes, and that is exactly right. The city passes outside the windows, lit up, indifferent, doing what cities do while people's lives change inside of them. Vivian has her father's white shawl across her lap. She keeps one hand on it. "Harris called already," Thomas says from the front. "His office left a message on your attorney's service. They want documents first thing Monday." Vivian nods. Mama Rose looks at her. "You knew she was going to do something tonight." "It is not a question." "I thought she might," Vivian says. "Elliot has been telling her for months that he was about to leave me. She's been waiting, watching. Tonight felt like an ending to her, his biggest event, all his people, a room full of witnesses." She looks out the window. "She wanted to make it official." "So you let her." "I needed a room full of witnesses, too." Mama Rose is quiet for a moment. Then she reaches over and takes Vivian's hand, covers it completely, the way she has covered Vivian's hand since Vivian was 3 years old and afraid of thunderstorms. "Your father would be so proud of you," she says. Vivian's throat closes. She does not trust her voice, so she says nothing. She just squeezes her mother's hand and holds on and watches the lights go past outside and breathes, slow and even and deep, the way she has been practicing for 8 months. The breathing they teach you for labor, for the moment when the thing you have been carrying is finally ready to come into the world. Elliot calls at 11:43. Vivian is home. Her dress is off. She is in her robe on the edge of the bed, the blue envelope on the nightstand beside her, the letter she wrote to her son 3 weeks ago, in case anything went wrong tonight, in case she needed him to know how she felt before the world got complicated. She looks at Elliot's name on the screen. She answers. Vivian, his voice is different. The public version of him is completely gone. What is left sounds like a man in a room by himself, with no audience left to perform for. I should have stopped her. She waits. I saw her cross the floor, he says. I saw the bottle, I knew what she was going to do, and I didn't move. I know, Vivian says. I watched you not move. The silence between them is long and neither of them tries to fill it quickly. Some silences deserve their full weight. The shares, he says finally. Harris called me. I know he did. You could have told me. You could have used those months ago. I know, she says. Why tonight? Vivian looks at the blue envelope on the nightstand. Because I needed to know if you would choose me in that room, in front of all those people, when it cost you something to do it. She stops. You didn't. He doesn't deny it. That at least is something. I am sorry, he says. And she believes him not because it changes anything, but because she knows his voice well enough to know when he means it. He means it now. It is 3 years too late, and it is not enough, and he means it. I know, she says. Get some sleep, Elliot. She ends the call. She picks up the blue envelope. She does not open it, she knows every word. She wrote them at 2 in the morning with her hand shaking and her heart full. She just holds it. She thinks about the boy who will read it someday, sitting somewhere she cannot yet picture, old enough to understand what it cost her to stay composed in that ballroom, old enough to know that she chose grace when she had every right to choose fury. She sets the envelope down. She turns off the light. And in the dark, her son kicks, once, twice, steady and insistent, the way he always does at night, like he is reminding her that she is not alone in this body, not alone in this life, not alone in any of it. She puts both hands on her stomach and closes her eyes. 2 months later, Vivian names him Daniel. After her father. She had decided that before he was born, before the gala, before any of it, because some decisions do not need to wait for the world to settle. The name was always his. He is born on a Thursday morning, 7 pounds and loud about it, and the first person who holds him after Vivian is Mama Rose, who cries without any attempt to stop it, which makes the nurses smile. Thomas is in the waiting room with flowers that are too large for the space. He does not come inside. He texts, "Glad you're both okay." Vivian sends back a photo and he responds with a single period, which from Thomas means everything. The coal industry's situation resolves the way these things resolve when the right documents reach the right people. Harris Grant restructures his investment on terms that recognize Vivian's controlling interest. Her attorney handles the rest. The divorce papers are filed on a Friday, processed quietly, with no drama and no audience because Vivian has used her one room, and that was enough. She does not hear from Jade. She does not expect to. But once, 3 weeks after Daniel is born, in the middle of a night feeding at 2 in the morning, she thinks about her. About a woman who was told she was chosen and then left to stand alone at a party that was never hers. She does not excuse what Jade did, but she thinks about her, and she hopes she is okay, and she lets it go. That is the thing about grace. It is not for the person you extend it to. It is for the version of yourself you are choosing to be. Vivian sits by the nursery window with Daniel against her chest, and she watches the sun come up over the city. Yellow light, slow and certain, the way it always comes. Her father used to say that the hardest thing a person can do is stay soft in a world that keeps giving them reasons not to. She used to think that meant being gentle with other people. She understands now that it starts with yourself. Daniel breathes, small and even. She pulls him closer. She stayed soft. She stayed standing. She walked out of that room in a ruined dress with her head up, and she brought a whole life with her. That is enough. That has always been enough. If you watch this all the way to Daniel's first morning, you already know what this story was really about. It was never about the wine. It was never about the mistress or the shares or the gala. It was about a woman who refused to become the worst thing that happened to her. Which moment broke you open the most? Was it when Elliot didn't move, when Vivian spoke to Jade at the exit, or when she turned the light off alone that night? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. Share this with someone who needs to see what quiet strength actually looks like. And subscribe, because the next story hits just as hard.